Shri Guru Shri Yudapadakavalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sakrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nidinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarini Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna and a very warm good evening to all of you. It is indeed quite warm and pleasant. A very pleasant change for me coming in from 35 degrees in India to 7 degrees in London and went down to -1, and suddenly to come here with 20 plus is definitely a very pleasant experience. And I'm very happy to be with all of you this evening. And Dr. Soni and Dr. Subanti, thank you for hosting us this evening.
Pleasure.
And to all of you for having come here. Today our dear Radha Mohan Prabhu asked me to speak on success and lessons from the Ramayana. The word success is, of course, something very familiar to us. Who doesn't want success? Everybody wants success. The question, however, is success in what? That's the first and most important point. What is our objective? What is our aspiration? What is that field? What is that specific thing in which we are seeking success? Someone may be a successful sportsman, someone a successful businessman, someone a successful professional, a successful student. How do we gauge success? What is our standard for judging success or measuring success? Of course, we don't have an objective standard, but there are some thumb rules we have in mind, some basic concept of success that we have in mind. For example, if somebody earns a lot of money, we say this person has become successful. If somebody has become very famous, we say this person has become very successful. If someone has developed some extraordinary ability to do something, we say successful. We often judge success in terms of the results. And that is not entirely wrong. When we see somebody delivering results, like in a company, nowadays there's a lot of the corporate culture, and people want results. Political leaders are pushed by the citizens to give results. Officers in any company are pushed to give results for the company. The doctors are pushed by the patients to give results in terms of, recovery from their ill health. So we are all expected to deliver, to give some results. And definitely we cannot completely separate the results from our idea of success. However, that is not the only criterion. And we will see these lessons not only in Ramayana, but in all our Vedic scriptures, whether it's the Mahabharata, or the Rama, or the Srimad Bhagavatam, or the Upanishads, the Puranas. There are innumerable episodes which illustrate the meaning of real success. That real success should not be limited only to delivering external results. And sometimes one may be considered successful, most successful, even when the external results do not come. And sometimes, even though the external results appear to make us very successful, we may actually be failures. So this is something very subtle and something we need to think about. So far, what is the point I'm trying to make? Number one, that success is seen in terms of external results, which is definitely an important criterion. It's not the only criterion. But from our Shastras, from our scriptures, we learn that success is to be measured by other criteria as well. And fundamentally, there is another criterion, another point of view regarding success. And seen from that point of view, the spiritual point of view, the dharmic point of view, material success may turn out to be failure, and what is materially considered failure may turn out to be success. So, when we talk of success, we have to see not only in terms of results, but what is more important is what are the values and the purpose that drive our actions, which eventually result in so-called success or so-called failure. Very important point. I'll repeat that. What are our values and purpose that drive the actions that eventually result in so-called success or failure? According to our scripture, if our actions are in accordance with dharma, and we have acted in all virtue, with all intelligence, sincerity at our disposal, then regardless of the external result, we are considered successful. You have probably all heard of the famous Bhagavad Gita verse, Karmanyevadhikaraste, that starts from that. Now the issue with this verse is that most people know only this first line, which is Karmanyevadhikaraste, which means that one has an adhikar or a right to perform one's karma, one's duty. And certainly that is the case. But some people mistakenly understand this verse or even this one line to imply that work in and of itself is worship. That is not necessarily the case. It may be the case, but not always. If our work is in alignment with the principles of dharma, then that work is worship. If our work is adharmic, against dharma, then it is not worship. And what is important is the next line as well. When Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Karmanyevadhikaraste, that you have a right to perform your duty or your work, in the very next line he says, Ma phaleshu kadachana. But don't expect or don't be attached to the reactions of your work, to the fruits of your labor. Now every one of us works for some results. The employee in the company works to get a salary at the end of the month. Everyone works for something. A professional works for some kind of income at the end of the month. A sportsman works for success in the game. So we all expect results. Every day, every small and big thing we do in our life, we do it with some goal, some objective in mind. Even something as ordinary as cooking, we have a goal. We have decided what we want to cook. We gather the ingredients, put them together in a certain way, and use certain procedures to come up with some end result. And if we are good cooks, experienced cooks, the result will be as we desired. So we all have some plans, some results. So this one line of Bhagavad Gita, Karmanyavadikaraste, that you have a right to perform your prescribed duty, and the second line, that don't be attached, Mahapaleshu kadachana, that don't be attached to the fruits of your action, does not mean that we should not plan. It does not mean that we should not seek results. In fact, if we don't seek results, we can't exist, we can't survive. For every little thing, we have some goal to achieve. But the point is, are the things that we desire, are the things that we seek to obtain, are our goals in accordance with Dharma, directly or indirectly? That is the important question to see. So therefore, there will be many instances that we can see in our life where we feel compelled to change our course of action because we think, oh, this is not right for me to do. I want to do something, but then I think, no, it is not ethical, or it is not right for me to do. Let's consider now some topics from the Ramayana. As you know, Lord Ram is God Himself, who has appeared on this earth for various purposes. As Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, He essentially comes for three purposes. Number one, paritranaya sadhunam, to protect the sadhus or the devotees. Vinashaya cha dushkritam, to destroy the miscreants, the scoundrels, those who are evil and create a disturbance for everybody. And third, dharma sansthapanarthaya, for dharma samsthapana, for the establishment of dharma. So Lord Ram accomplished all these three as an avatar of the Lord. So in the course of establishing dharma, the various incarnations of the Lord do it in various ways, and a combination of various ways. Lord Ram is one incarnation who actually demonstrates and establishes dharma by his own actions. When it comes to an incarnation like Lord Krishna, that can get a little bewildering. Because Lord Krishna doesn't teach us only by his example. He does, but there are some actions which can bewilder us a little bit, unless one is very well acquainted with the devotional principles of the scripture, one may misunderstand. But even Lord Ram's actions can be misunderstood and are indeed misunderstood by many. But Lord Ram has come to teach us personally through his life, through his words, and through his actions and behavior, as to how an ideal human being should be. So he is Purushottama. Purusha means person, and Uttama means the best. So he is the best amongst all people, and he is Maryada Purushottam, which means he sets the standard for dharmic behavior, for proper conduct. Lord Ram's basic character is very noble. When we speak the word noble, some impression comes in our mind. Oh, he's a very noble person. Immediately you think of someone who's very virtuous, very big-hearted, and a certain picture of that person emerges in our mind. So Lord Ram is the ultimate noble person who embodies in his own personality certain characteristics which are desirable for all cultured and civilized people. Some days ago, in our temple in Bhaktivedanta Manor in Watford, on the occasion of Ram Navami, we had a series of lectures on Ramayana. So I was mentioning in one of those lectures that the very beginning of the Ramayana points out Valmiki contemplating on the ideal characteristics of a human being. Who is an ideal or perfect human? what kind of qualities should a person have to be considered ideal or perfect? And even as Valmiki is sitting there in his ashram and thinking deeply about this, his guru, the great sage Narada, comes. And understanding that Valmiki is immersed in deep thought, he asks him, "So my dear sage, what is it you're thinking about so deeply?" And then Valmiki reveals his mind and says, "O great sage, I'm wondering whether there is any perfect human being here on earth, living presently, not just in history, but currently living." And he points out 16 such qualities. Of course, the Lord has infinite qualities, innumerable, noble and divine qualities. But Valmiki Muni is specifically referring to a human being, and he points out 16. Not that the 16 completes the entire list of good qualities that one can possibly have, but the 16 very noteworthy qualities are mentioned by Valmiki. Now, Lord Ram is not a human being. Even when the Lord appears within the human society, he acts like a human, but he is never a human. He may speak like a human, act like a human, look like a human, but he remains always the Supreme Lord. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the great Queen Kunti, the mother of the Pandavas, speaks a very beautiful verse to Lord Krishna. Her prayers, Kunti's Stuti, are very well known. She says, "Janma karma cha vishvatman ajasya karturatmanaha nishu yadhasu tad atyanta vidambanam." She says, "My dear Krishna, it is indeed very bewildering, vidambanam, that you who are unborn take birth. You who have no duty to perform actually come to this earth and perform a variety of duties. And not only that, you appear in a variety of species. Yadahasu, you sometimes become an aquatic, like a fish. Nri, you sometimes come in the human form. Rishi, sometimes you come as a sage. Tiryan, sometimes you become an animal. Not become an animal, but you appear in the animal species." So it is indeed bewildering, because even though you are the Lord, you appear in all these species. So when the Lord appears within a given species, he acts like any other normal entity of that species. So when he is born as the Matsya avatar, he will swim like a fish. When he appears as Narasimha, half lion, half man, he roars like a lion. So similarly, when he comes as Lord Ram, and he is here establishing dharma, trying to teach what ideal human behavior should be, we should know that he is still always God. He is always the Supreme Lord. But he is merely acting in a certain way, appearing to be a human, and telling us how an ideal human being should be. So as Maryada Purushottam, there are exemplary ways in which he dealt with the weaknesses of the human mind. One of the weaknesses which I'll deal with now is an inkling for power, a lust for power. Generally, people like to have power and influence over others. And there are some in whose mind this becomes a very strong, compelling urge. So especially those who want to obtain positions of political power, military power. So they want power at any cost. And human history is replete with so many instances when people have done anything to get political, royal, or social, or some other kind of power. Power is not an easy thing to handle in this world. Some wise person has said that adversity is hard to tolerate, but we all do it in our lives. How many of us have not had adversity in our life? We've all had difficulties. Every day sometimes we experience small difficulties and sometimes big difficulties. So every one of us has encountered adversity, and somehow or the other we have tolerated it and we have borne it and we have moved on in our life. So the test of a person's character is not merely how he or she conducts herself or himself in adversity. That is one indication. But this wise person said that the test of real character is when you give somebody power or the temptation of power. That is the real test of a person's character. Give that person power and see how he behaves. Therefore we see that once people get power, their mindset changes and they don't recognize you anymore, and now they're in a different world altogether, they become proud, and then their psychology gets corrupted. So there is a proverb that says, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And we see this especially in the lives of great kings and political leaders who have not been able to handle power. And it has gone to their head. They become so proud and they become very exploitative, and they do anything to stay in power or to get power. Now, most of you are from India, I suppose, so you are familiar to some degree with Indian history. So in the medieval ages, there was King Aurangzeb. I'm sure you have all heard of him. Now, his father was Shah Jahan. Shah Jahan was the king, emperor, and he was ruling. And somehow or the other, Aurangzeb wanted the throne. So he had certain thorns in his path, his father and his brothers. So he teamed up with one brother and he imprisoned his father, and he killed the other brother who was the favorite of the father. There was Darashiko, who was a very learned person. He also read the Upanishads and he was a very wise man, unlike Aurangzeb. Then Aurangzeb, after doing that, he also killed his own brother who had helped him to imprison his father. So he killed his brothers, imprisoned his father, and then he came on the throne. So the lust for power can be so strong that people can kill their brothers, imprison or even kill their own father, mother, anybody. They are willing to go to any lengths because they think that this is the standard for success in life. If I become the king of the land, this is my success. And to attain that success, they are willing to do anything and everything. There is no consideration of dharma or virtue in such a situation. And human history, not just in India, in any country of the world, is full of such instances. But look at the character and life of Lord Ram. Such an astonishing display of, it is my bounden duty to ensure that I obey your every word and to protect your dharma. You have given your word to Mother Kaikeyi long ago that you would grant her 2 boons. She has asked for these 2 boons. No matter whether these boons are very painful to you, to anybody else, they must be done. You must stay firm to your vow, to your word. One of the characteristics of qualities of Lord Ram that Valmiki has spoken about is that he's Satyavakya. He speaks the truth and he abides by the truth. And therefore he is Dharmagya. Dharmagya means one who not only knows what Dharma is in all its entirety and its intricacies, but he also follows Dharma. It's not enough to know what Dharma is intellectually, theoretically, but one has to live Dharma. One time, our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada met one gentleman who came to him from India, and this gentleman said, Swamiji, I can recite Bhagavad Gita in 48 minutes. And the way he said it, Srila Prabhupada understood that this gentleman had become a little proud, that he was able to recite Bhagavad Gita in 48 minutes. So Srila Prabhupada asked him, I'm very happy that you can recite Bhagavad Gita in 48 minutes, but can you live Bhagavad Gita for 48 minutes? So it is not enough to just theoretically know some things, intellectually know something. To what degree have we assimilated that knowledge? To what degree have we realized that knowledge? This is the difference between jnana and vijnana. Jnana is knowledge, vijnana is experienced knowledge. Just like in any field of science, or other fields as well, you have theory and you have practicals. So you learn the theoretical knowledge and then you go to a laboratory or something and you practically verify it all. So it has to be vijnana. So the word dharmagya indicates that not only did Lord Ram understand what was dharma, he lived dharma in every moment of his life. So he told his father, my dear father, at any cost, your word will be protected. You have asked me to go to the forest, and I will do so at any cost. In fact, after instructing Ram or telling Ram in a heartbroken state that this was what has happened, Dasharath Maharaj did something interesting. He knew that he was bound to his word. So he asked Ram to go. But then he later told him, Ram, my heart is completely broken. I cannot bear the very thought of you not being the king after me, of not being the crown prince now, and what to speak of you going into the forest for 14 long years. It is unthinkable for me. Nothing can give me more grief than this. I would rather die than see this happening, but I have given my word. So please, Ram, I beg of you. He started pleading with his son. Please forcefully imprison me and sit on the throne. So that means from my side, I have given you the instruction. Dasharath's point was that he gave him the instruction to go. So Dasharath has kept his word. But Lord Ram was asked by Dasharath, you please imprison me and you forcefully occupy the throne. So in a sense, he was giving his blessings to Ram to do that through the back door. But Lord Ram said, no, that's a form of cheating. I cannot do that. The law of dharma has to be followed not just in letter, but also in spirit. It must be completely followed. And I cannot do this because the spirit is that I should not be here. I should be elsewhere and I should be obedient to you as my father. And I have to protect your vow, your truthfulness, your satyam. Satyam. So Lord Ram refused to do that. He said, I will help you to fulfill your vow. And then he had no hesitation. There was no bitterness. There was no frustration. Oh, just see this Mother Kaikeyi. What has she done to me? She has ruined my career. She has ruined my life. It is only a short time that just this morning I was going to be announced proclaimed the Yuvaraj, the crown prince. And now just see, because of my stepmother, what's happened to me? I've lost everything. He did not repent like that. He did not blame Kaikeyi. He understood this was the way of providence, of destiny. You see, success and failure, happiness and distress, pleasure and pain, fame and infamy come as a result of destiny. Destiny is nothing but the results of the karma or the actions that we have performed in previous lives. So when we have performed some actions in the past, the reactions will unavoidably come. We cannot escape them. It is said that just as one's shadow will follow one wherever one goes, our karma will follow us. Another interesting analogy given in the Shastras is, a calf can search out its mother even in the large herd of many, many cows. The calf will perfectly understand who its mother is and will go right up to the mother to drink milk. So similarly, unerringly, without fail, without any mistake, our karma will seek us out like a guided missile. Nowadays you have these laser-guided missiles, heat-seeking missiles. So if you have an enemy plane or something and you shoot a missile, and that missile will seek out that aircraft or something and it will hit it. Of course, now with guided missiles we have misguided men that go behind it. That is the unfortunate part. But the principle is that our karma will seek us out wherever we are, in whatever situation, however strong or weak we may be. So then why should one worry so much about it? Why should one unnecessarily struggle against one's destiny, especially by following adharma and by creating further sinful activity which will bring another cycle of bad reactions and suffering in our life? So Ram understood that this is the working of destiny. And therefore the proper dharmic thing for me to do is to just accept it in an equipoised way and to follow it with no rancor in the heart, with no grudges, with no ill feeling towards anyone, not only towards his father but even towards his stepmother Kaikeyi. And genuinely, as Valmiki Muni explains, Lord Ram bore only affection for his mother, his stepmother Kaikeyi. He never bore any ill will towards her. Actually, some time later, it was Kaikeyi whose heart changed. Kaikeyi was not actually a bad woman. She actually loved Ram very much as she loved her own son, perhaps more. But she was instigated by Manthara, her maid. And because of that, her mind turned. So it goes to show the importance of good company and bad company. A good person can do horrible things in bad company. And a bad person can completely transform into a good person in good company. So Kaikeyi actually was not a bad lady. Somehow or the other this happened by the instigation and bad company of Manthara. Later on, however, she realized her mistake. And then she was once again very affectionate to Lord Ram. But Lord Ram never wavered in his affection for his stepmother Kaikeyi. He remained loyal to all his mothers and to his father. So just imagine such a thing. Imagine the condition of Lord Ram. Here is a person who is next day in the morning going to be anointed the crown prince. And it's not that his father was forcefully doing it. He was much loved. In fact, the people loved Ram more than they loved Dasharath Maharaj. Of course, they loved Dasharath also. But there was no limit to how much they loved Lord Ram. Before Dasharath Maharaj made the announcement officially of Lord Ram becoming the next crown prince, he consulted all the important groups of citizens. He consulted the ministers, he consulted the brahmanas, the sages, he consulted prominent businessmen, he consulted many other leading citizens. And when they all agreed wholeheartedly with him, with his proposal of anointing Lord Ram as the crown prince, it is only then that he went ahead and announced. He said, tomorrow will be the ceremony. And that was the night in which this whole transformation happened, Kaikeyi coming to her. Everything changed in one night. Manthara just worked on Kaikeyi's mind like anything. This is how people can manipulate other people's minds. And so in one night everything changed. And imagine, Lord Ram was quite prepared for being anointed the Yuvaraj next day morning. And just a few hours later he hears, not only is he not going to be appointed as the crown prince, he will have to go for 14 years in the forest. He will not be permitted to enter into any town or city. He will have to live only within the precincts of the forest. He will have to wear tree bark, and he will have to eat only roots and berries and fruits that are found in the forest. On one hand, he was raised in all his 27 years, because this incident took place when he was about 27. For 27 years, he had lived a comfortable life. Yes, he did make a few excursions, like he did with Vishwamitra Muni to kill some Rakshasas and so on. But by and large, he was living in the comforts of the palace, with all the luxuries, with all the respect and love of the people of his kingdom. And now all of a sudden, he's told, 14 years, you have to go into exile. So any other normal person would have been so shocked, would have been traumatized. They would probably have to go to our hostess for advice. I think you're a psychiatrist, aren't you? Yes. So anybody else in this situation would get so disturbed. They would think, everything has been taken away from me. Overnight, literally overnight. But he didn't do that. He was completely calm. He accepted the situation, he considered it deeply, and said, this is the right thing for me to do. This is the virtuous thing for me to do. In fact, it was he who convinced everybody. Nobody else except Kaikeyi and Manthara wanted Ram to go into the forest. Everybody, including the ministers, the citizens, everybody wanted Ram to stay. But it was he who persuaded them all. Even after Ram left Ayodhya, he went up to a point in the chariot. Dasharath Maharaj's minister Sumantra rode them in a chariot to a certain point. And all the citizens of Ayodhya followed behind on foot. And they said to Kaikeyi, you can have your kingdom and let your son be the king, but your son will be the king of an empty kingdom. Not one human being or not even an animal will remain here. We will all go with Ram, and he will rule us in the forest. We will all live in the forest. And with that determination, the citizens of Ayodhya followed Ram. And finally, at a certain point, Ram had to undertake an act of deception to throw them off the track, so that they would all go back to Ayodhya, so they couldn't find him. He had to somehow trick them and disappear into the forest. So such was the love that all the citizens had for him. And you see, when nobody likes you, it's not so hard to leave and go. But when everybody loves you and everybody wants you to stay, and it is your right to stay, it is your birthright, and you're qualified in every respect, and then you are told that you have to leave and go, it's not easy. So Lord Ram accepted this. He didn't act like Aurangzeb or any of the other kings, even though his father actually asked him to do what Aurangzeb would do many years later, to imprison him. He didn't do that. He remained. For him, the idea of success in life was not merely sitting on the throne. So for any person who is a royal prince, success means to become the king. So by any other normal material measure of success, to become a king is a sign of success. And to be deprived of sitting on the throne is a sign of failure. So by that standpoint, one can think of Ram as a failure because he didn't get the throne. Yes, destiny intervened, envy intervened, all right, but ultimately he failed. People may argue like that. But actually, we consider that as success. Greater success than if he had occupied that throne against the laws of dharma. Then it would actually have been failure. And Bharat Maharaj, his younger brother, this number 2 of the 4 brothers, he also demonstrated what real success is. Here was a person for whom his own mother had schemed and maneuvered and done a lot of politics to get him on the throne. But he loved Ram more than himself. And he wanted Ram and only Ram to be the king. When Bharat came back, actually he was away at that time at his grandfather's place. When he returned and learned about what had happened, he was so furious with his mother. He berated her, reprimanded her like anything, and said, I refuse to accept the throne. Kaikeyi was shocked, but he reproached her in such strong words. And then Ram said, and Bharat said, I will immediately depart for the forest where Lord Ram is right now. And I will beg him, I will request him, plead with him that he must come back and assume the kingship of this land. Because by this time Dasharath Maharaj had passed away. He could not tolerate the grief of separation from his son Ram. So a short while after Ram left for exile with Sita and Lakshman, Dasharath Maharaj could not survive. He left. He departed from this world. And a message was sent to Bharat. He wasn't told what had happened. He was just told to come back. So he quickly came back, and when he found out all that had happened, he was furious. So he decided that he would go into the forest to meet Ram. And all the mothers and the ministers and many of the leading citizens and sages, they all accompanied him. And they went into the forest and they went all the way up to Chitrakoot. And Ram was very courteous to Bharat. Actually, in the beginning, Lakshman thought that Bharat had come to kill Ram with his army. And Ram admonished him. He said, it's because you have all these nasty ideas that you are attributing this motive to Bharat. Bharat is clean. Of course, Lakshman is also completely pure. He is also an incarnation of the Lord. But out of his sheer love and his feeling of wanting to protect Lord Ram, he felt like that. He mistakenly felt that Bharat was also taking the side of his mother, Kaikeyi. But Bharat came and pleaded with Ram, please come back. Ram refused. In a very gentle and loving way, he persuaded Bharat to go back and become the king. And he said, at any cost, see, the important thing is not the throne. The important thing is dharma. Herein lies our success. So go back, my dear Bharat. He gave him many good instructions on how a king should rule. Bharat said no. He had brought some wooden footwear, some sandals, padukas. He said to Ram, please wear them once. Lord Ram wore them Then Bharat took those sandals, he went back to Ayodhya, didn't live in Ayodhya, he lived at a place on the outskirts of Ayodhya called Nandigram. He placed the sandals of Lord Ram on the throne, and as far as he was concerned, he was only ruling on behalf of Lord Ram, who was present there in the form of his sandals. And for the entire 14 years, Bharat also dressed in tree bark. He also ate the kind of food that Lord Ram would have eaten in the forest. He underwent the same kind of austerities that Lord Ram would have undergone in the forest. And only when Lord Ram came back to Ayodhya after 14 years, that Bharat was overjoyed. So here also we see an example of how Bharat understood this vital point. Today we see that people struggle and fight for positions and for the throne, or children fight for the inheritance of their parents. I suppose it happens everywhere. And in India nowadays we hear of so many such instances. Offspring fighting bitterly for their property of the ancestors or of the parents or something like that. So much greed, so much selfishness, no big-heartedness. Because the modern materialistic conception is to get more money, more property is success. This is the wrong impression that people have. And therefore, anything that can bring more power, more money, more enjoyment, more prestige, these are considered signs of success. And dharma is nowhere in the picture. The first quality of Lord Ram that Valmiki mentions in the beginning of the Ramayana is that he is Gunavan. Gunavan means one who is fully endowed with all sorts of gunas. Gunas means qualities, all sorts of auspicious, wonderful qualities, sublime qualities. Now, today, people want to become Dhanavan only. Dhanavan means to become wealthy, to have dhan, wealth. But nobody wants to become Gunavan. The standard of success is to become Gunavan, to become Dharmajna, not just to become Dhanavan, not just to have a high position in society, have a prestige in society, and get a lot of wealth, etc. So both Ram and Bharat have demonstrated this through their life. In other words, living a life of virtue, adhering to dharma, is the standard of success. And never mind if in the process of following dharma, we may have to face reversals in our material life. We may be deprived of some wealth, perhaps deprived of some position, which is rightfully ours. If indeed it is rightfully ours, then we do have a right to prevent ourselves from being exploited. Inasmuch as we should see that justice is done for everybody, inasmuch as we would like to ensure that nobody else is exploited, it is also our dharma to prevent ourselves from getting exploited. That is the whole reason for the battle of Kurukshetra. Krishna did not want to fight in the beginning. It is only when all avenues were exhausted that Duryodhana was being so stubborn and adamant and evil, he was not even willing to part with as much of land as is on the head of a pin in his famous coat. Then, even after Lord Krishna had tried to be a peace messenger, there was no option left. Then there had to be a war. So one has a right to protect oneself, to protect one's interests, reasonably so. But still, all this should be in accordance with dharma. Then one is successful. So today this measure or understanding of virtue is a long lost phenomenon. How many people today will give precedence to virtue and dharma over material attainments and acquisitions. Very few. So we need a bit of a paradigm shift. Some shift in thinking about what constitutes success. And Lord Ram has indicated, not only was he not attached to power, but even in his absence, he took to it very nicely. Even the absence of power did not disturb him. And eventually when he came back and ruled, he remained exactly the same as before. That power never went to his head, so to speak. He never became arrogant. He still looked after his citizens with as much love as before. He remained as humble as before. He never changed. Because for him the most important thing was not the throne, was not material success, but pursuing the principles of dharma. So also in our life. Of course this topic is long, and I think we have another 1 or 2 lectures on the same topic. So I can discuss other aspects of this in the other lectures. But suffice it to say for now, that even in our life, if we keep Lord Ram's example as our guiding light, especially in times of difficulty and challenge, and we stick to the path of dharma no matter what, that will be our success in life. And ultimately, from a spiritual point of view, when one lives a dharmic or a virtuous life, when one understands spiritual knowledge at an even higher level, one comes to understand that real success means to go beyond this cycle of birth and death in which we have all been trapped from time immemorial. So what is the use if today I'm a multi-billionaire, but in the next life I get the body of an animal or an insect, which is entirely possible. If I have, in the course of earning this wealth, committed so many adharmic or sinful activities that I deserve by my karma to be born in that kind of a body, it may happen. So what is the use of my billionaire becoming a billionaire if I become an insect or an animal in the next life? So because people do not have spiritual knowledge about the eternal soul, the Atma, they do not have knowledge about the next life and that there is something coming, people see everything only from the point of view of this one lifetime. But Bhagavad Gita teaches us, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, they all teach us to look beyond this one life in judging what our real success is. Our real success eventually is to get out of this cycle of birth and death. So long as we have this body, there will be suffering. We are spiritual entities and we are meant to be in the kingdom of God, in the Vaikuntha world that Lord Krishna refers to in the Bhagavad Gita briefly. So we are meant to be there with Lord Krishna, with Lord Ram, in the spiritual world. This material world is not our natural habitat. It is an artificial place. We are like fish out of water over here. So we have to revive our original spiritual consciousness, which is a consciousness of love for God. That Ram Bhakti, that Krishna Bhakti is our goal. That is our real success. When we attain by spiritual knowledge and practice that stage of pure Ram Bhakti and Krishna Bhakti, then we will be eligible to transcend the laws of. The easiest way of doing that is to associate with devotees of the Lord, and hear the messages of the Lord, and to chant the holy names. The Kali Santaran Upanishad speaks about this Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we have to simply chant this Mahamantra. Go on chanting as much as we can every day. and hear the Lord's messages and instructions and try to follow them in our life. Then our life will be truly successful. Thank you very much. So, I will be happy to try to answer any questions if you have any.
I got a question for you.
Yes.
Who judges the success?
Do you mind
Just introduce yourself.
All right, okay. Sorry, my name is Prakash.
Can you pour this out?
Okay. My name is Prakash Samani. I live in Stoke-on-Trent. I've been here for 47 years. I just want to ask, who judges the success? Is it the business community, is it the cultural community, or is it our society? Because what I think I'm successful, but
Yes.
who judges me?
Okay, very good question. Mr. Samani, right?
Yes, that's right.
Mr. Samani's question, who judges success? Is it the business community? Is it the society at large? Who judges? Material success may be judged by all the categories that you mentioned. But real success will be judged by the great devotees, by the sadhus. And typically there is a threefold test that is called Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. So our standard of our success has to be measured against the knowledge and the standards that are given by Guru, that is the spiritual master, by Sadhu, that is the previous spiritual masters, and also other sadhus, contemporary, and Shastra, which means the scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita, the Ramayan, Mahabharata, Upanishads, Puranas. That is our standard. So we will, just like if you want to know who is a good mathematician, you have to ask other mathematicians. If I say that such and such is a good mathematician, or if I don't have training in mathematics, my word doesn't carry much weight. But when the body of mathematicians say that, okay, this is a good mathematician, then that makes sense. So similarly, when we're in the spiritual field, those who are advanced in that field, those who are expert in that field should judge. Who is successful? Ah, yes, this is a genuine spiritualist. This person is successful. Right? Any other questions? Please feel free.
This issue about Sudarshan, my name is Sudarshan. The issue about the rebirth is, we here in this country, many people say it's only one life, enjoy it or whatever, because people don't believe in the rebirth, or they need proof. Our culture, we are used to that, the concept of rebirth, karma and everything. So how does sort of, if somebody is having that sort of concept where it's only one birth, let me do whatever, there's no question of me coming back, and I'm all cells, and then I'm going to die, I'm going to be destroyed, and so it doesn't matter whatever I do, nothing is going to happen to me.
Okay, Ms. Sudarshan, yes? You're also a doctor, isn't it?
I'm a doctor.
Doctor. Also a psychiatrist?
Yes.
Quite a few psychiatrists here. So Dr. Sudarshan's question is that people today don't believe generally in the next life. They think that one life is all in all. Which is why the answer is that we need to get knowledge or understanding of this by referring to scriptures, which can give us perfect knowledge about these things. If we want to learn physics or accounting, we'll go to the respective textbooks. Similarly, if you want to learn about spiritual things, especially those topics which are beyond the purview of our senses, then we should approach the spiritual textbooks. And in Bhagavad Gita, for example, we find A very beautiful logical explanation for the idea of the next life. Dehinosman yatha dehe kaumaram yovanam jara tatha dehantara prapte dhiras tatra muhyati. Krishna says that just as in this body one changes from childhood to youth to old age bodies, one similarly at the destruction of this body accepts another body. So the idea of changing bodies is something we are actually familiar with, even though we may not realize it so much. If you look at our picture when we were babies and compare it to our picture now, there's hardly any similarity. But it's the same us. It's I who was a baby. It's I who am now of this age. So we have remained the same, but our body has changed considerably. So changing, the body is changing at every second. And in fact, most of you are from the medical community, the cells are constantly changing, isn't it? Many cells die at every moment, and some cells are being created or born at some point in time. So this process is going on. And the body is constituted of these cells, ultimately different types of cells. So the body is actually changing, and it has completely changed from the time not one single cell in our body remains what it was when we were born. So the body, the question of the change of body is not something unfamiliar to us. So just as everything changes here, we also, at the end of this body, we get another body. That's the point. And he also gives the analogy of the body being a dress. Vasamshi jirnani yathavyaya navani granati naroparani. He says just as we accept one dress and then give it up, we take another dress. Similarly, this body is like a dress for the Atma. We give up this dress and we accept another dress, another body. So the question of the soul changing bodies is like us changing clothes. So it's not something really surprising. And it's quite logical. As the deeper we go into it, the more sense it all makes. Only at a superficial level, people simply reject it by saying that, who has seen it, where is the proof? But there are much deeper questions. And nowadays there are many people in the medical field who have done a lot of research into this. Since you're psychiatrists here, there is a famous psychiatrist called Dr. Ian Stevenson. He died about 2 or 3 years ago. He used to be at the University of Virginia in the US. He spent his entire life, his entire career, in investigating past life memories. And especially these memories are found in children. Not all children, rare children. And he found these children in all corners of the globe, not just in India and not just in Hindu families. He found them in Jordan, in Sweden, in America, in South America, in Australia, in Hindu families, Muslims, Christians, everywhere. And he eliminated all possibility of fraud and deception, etc. And he's got a whole wealth of data on cases where he firmly believes that there is no course but to accept that these children indeed lived previously. He tested them out because these children remembered many things of their previous life. For example, there was one girl in India, Minu, who claimed to be a certain woman in her previous life. And she remembered everything about her previous life. She would keep talking. Initially, her parents thought that this was just some childish, prattle, because children generally talk all sorts of rubbish. They keep talking something. So sometimes we neglect them. So the parents initially thought she was talking like this, but then they realized this was serious. And then finally, Dr. Ian Stevenson and his team took that girl. They found out that there was indeed such a lady who lived in the place that they had mentioned, and she had died on at a certain time in a certain way. They took this girl there, and she recognized her former husband, her former sons and relatives, brother-in-law, etc. She recognized where the things were in the house, where the jewelry was kept, and where so many other things were kept. And she answered many of the family questions that there was no way she could otherwise have known. So there are many, many instances like this. So if one is asking for empirical evidence, this is one category. And it's a big topic, so I won't speak more about this. But there are innumerable such instances. So how can somebody remember the previous life? If the body is destroyed at death, which indeed it is, what is it that continues to the next life? So there must be something that is continuing from a previous life, and that is the Atma. So the Atma is eternal. It is never destroyed when the body is destroyed. So there is the evidence of logic, there is the evidence of the law of karma, there is the evidence of past life memories, there is the evidence of near-death experiences, and there are innumerable other types of evidences that we can speak of. Okay? Any other questions?
Yes. Can I be a bit of a devil's advocate? Just asking
Please,
a question.
please.
If you talk of rebirth, in a sense that you said you're born as an animal, is it an inferior, is it a punishment to be born as an animal? That's my first question.
Mm-hmm.
Next question is, being born as an animal, how do you redeem yourself doing good deeds to get a good birth on the next birth, if that's the case? Just I'm asking.
Okay. Dr. Soni, right? Are you a
Yes.
psychiatrist too?
I'm a surgeon. actually.
Surgeon, okay. Which surgeon?
I'm a general surgeon.
General
But I
surgeon.
I'm a breast cancer surgeon. So yeah.
Okay. So Dr. Soni's question is that is a birth as an animal considered a lower birth? And in an animal birth, how can the individual redeem himself? By doing good deeds. Because does an animal have any conception of what is a good deed, what is not, etc. Right? Now the answer is yes. An animal birth is considered a lower birth. Because an animal is not endowed with the capacity to reason and understand spiritual knowledge like humans are. So it is indeed a lower birth. An animal is not generally in a situation to question its own existence and suffering. We can ask ourselves, why am I suffering? Why am I forced to get born again and again? An animal cannot ask this question. The second question is about how the animal can redeem itself. Actually, by the laws of karma, as given in the Puranas and the Shastras, the human form of life represents a junction, a critical junction. When you come to a railway junction or an airplane junction, then you come to that point and then you go to various destinations from there. So the human form of life is the form of life where we generate our karma, for which we are accountable, responsible, and answerable. If that karma is bad, now what is bad, what is good is another topic for another lecture. If we do action that is bad, we get a lower birth. Lower births also are of various kinds, so many other species. So one falls down to a certain level. And then, once one has fallen down, one undergoes pain for one's sinful activities that one has performed in the human form of life. So then, once one is in a lower species, then one is no longer accountable or answerable for one's actions. One merely enjoys or suffers the results of the karma performed in the previous human life. So therefore you may see some animals like a dog, a stray dog in India for example, suffers like anything. It's tortured, other dogs bite it and doesn't get food to eat. On the other hand, you may see some dogs here who are taken to beauty parlors, who sleep on silken beds, so they are dogs. So obviously they've done something sinful in their previous human life, but they've also done some piety because of which they've got such a dog's life. Right? So it's a combination. So in the lower species, one doesn't generate karma for which one is responsible or answerable. One just burns out the karma that one has performed in the previous human life. And then there is a process of natural evolution of the soul to the different species. Still automatically by the laws of nature one comes to the human form. This doesn't happen by endeavor. It happens automatically. One comes to a certain point. At this point, there is still a residual karma left. It is not all been exhausted by lower births. Then one is born in a certain type of human body. One starts exhausting that karma, but in the process one generates more karma as well. And then again the whole question of whether one will take birth as a human, as a lower species, or go to higher planets, or whether one will be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. Okay? Yes, you have a question.
If you're a boy in your life now,
If
would
you're
you-
what?
if you
A boy.
a boy
A boy.
in this life, would
Yes.
you be a boy in the next life, or could you be a girl?
Interesting question. If you're a boy in this life, can you be a girl in the next life? Maybe. Maybe not. One may not even be a human. One may become a tree, for example. It's possible. One may become an animal, or a bird, or an insect. Or one may become a king, or a queen. So it depends on our karma, the karma that we perform in this life. Okay? Generally, even for those people who believe in some sort of karma and rebirth, there is a mistaken idea that a human can only be reborn as a human. But that is not the case. The knowledge is very clear. One can be born in any situation of life depending on one's karma. Okay, so thank you very much. You have been a very patient audience.
Can I just say something?
Yes.
I don't know whether it's allowed because today is Hanuman Jayanti and you talked about Ramayana as well. That we can chant Hanuman Chalisa with this once.
If you like, yes. We can, Hanuman will be pleased when we chant his master's name. The greatest thing that pleases Hanuman is the chanting of his master's names, Ram. So if we chant the name of Ram along with Lord Krishna, then Hanuman will be most pleased. So maybe we can chant the names of Lord Ram, and that will please Hanuman. I was just mentioning to our Radha Mohan Prabhu that today being Hanuman Jayanti, I was thinking of next 3 days in our Manchester temple in the morning, I was thinking of speaking about Hanuman, speaking Hanuman Katha. But today, since we had a specific topic, I stuck to that mostly. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna. Shri Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman ki. Thank you very much.
Can I please ask one question? Sorry, it's
Yeah,
just
sure,
quick
sure,
one.
sure.
Mostly they're saying that, I'm not sure it's in Gita or somewhere, that one should not associate oneself with the result of the work, whatever the gain. So it's not because of me I have got the positive.
Yes, I discussed this in the beginning of the talk. Were you there? Karmane Vadikara.
Yeah.
But one should not be attached to the results of one's actions. Ma karma phala heturbhur. One should not think oneself with the cause. Mate karma, mate sangusto akarmani. One should not be attached to not doing one's duty also. So the word karma indicates duty. So duty means that which is the right thing to do. Right? It is not the wrong thing. So inasmuch as one has a right to do one's prescribed duty, but one does not have a right to do that which is not our prescribed duty or that which is prohibited in the scriptures. Now, this sense of doership is seen at different levels. At one level, yes, we are doing the act, and therefore we are answerable for it. At another level, it is nature that is doing the act. At an even deeper level, it is only God who is doing everything. Now, these are all the three types of doers. But in the course of day-to-day actions, even though ultimately it is material nature and God facilitating the action, but because that action has been facilitated by my desire, so I am responsible. So therefore, if there's a good action performed, I get a good reaction. If I do a bad action, I get a bad reaction. So even though the act may apparently not be done by me, done by my body, but is my body also that gets the reactions, good or bad?
So a
Yes.
bad act is also the happening of the bad act is also because of the association to you.
Yes, because I have developed bad desires, bad tendencies by association in this life and previous lives. Therefore, I perform these bad activities and the reaction comes as a result of that. Okay?
So there is always an association. So one person is still associated to the result. Either it's a good result or bad result.
Yes, yes. As I said in the beginning, that we always strive for some result in everything we do. Whether it's cooking a meal or anything that we do. Are you a doctor too?
Yeah. Not a second.
So you have your patients who come to you.
Yeah.
So you have a very clear goal. You want to get them all right. Treat them in whichever way that is appropriate and get them all right. But even though you will do your best, you also know that there are other forces that work which may not be in your control. So curing the patient may not be completely in your hands. You may contribute very significantly in the process of healing and recovery. But despite the best medicines, despite the best diagnosis and investigative and therapeutic instruments, the patient may not recover. There are other powers at work. So you know that yes, you are doing it and you want a certain result. Sometimes you may get it, sometimes you may not get it.
But isn't it that ultimately a person should try to dissociate himself with either the positive or the negative result?
Yes.
So that association
Mhm.
is something one needs to get over it.
Yes, your question is, shouldn't one dissociate oneself with the good and bad results? Yes, indeed. One has to transcend that. And one can only transcend that when one performs spiritual or devotional activities, which are on the platform of the Atma, the soul. Good karma, bad karma are on the platform of this body. Therefore, you are responsible. So you will get the reactions, good or bad. But devotional karma, devotional activity is on the platform of the Atma. Therefore, the results are eternal. And when one performs all one's activities on the platform of the soul, then one transcends the negative and positive results of ordinary karma. Then one will live in this body as, let us say, in a mechanical way, because one has to deal with the body, just like you deal with your car. You deal with it in a mechanical way. You see that there is fuel, you see it gets serviced. If there's something broken, you'll get it repaired. You do the needful. But you don't identify yourself with the car. You don't think that you are the car. You know that you have a life separate from the car. So like that, we are the soul, the driver, the owner, and the body is like the car. Okay? All right, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.